Navigating real estate market shifts. How are you going to win? What are the strategies for success in any market? We're going to be unpacking that for you today. Let's face it, the market's been super fucking weird for the last 3 years now.
Yeah.
And we're going to share our perspectives on this. The good, the bad, the ugly, the tactical, the strategies, all of that shit we're going to unpack for you. But before we get started, if you like this podcast, if you like what you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to it. Please share it. And please leave us a 5-star review. That's our one ask for you. We're going to keep putting out this amazing content. We just want to ask that you will share it with somebody that could possibly benefit from it and give us a review. That'd be awesome. All right, let's jump into it. So how do you win in any market? I mean, if we look at the last 5 years, we kind of go back to 2020, market was fueled by COVID, right? And if you go back to 2020, we all thought COVID was actually going to ruin the real estate market. Mm-hmm. And what happened was it didn't get ruined. It actually was the best year for most of the agents I know.
Yeah, it was completely the opposite. March was when, at least in Washington State, the shelter in place was called and schools were canceled and everything. The world kind of shut down completely. And for those first couple of days, real estate agents were not essential, which means that we didn't get to work. We couldn't do certain things. We couldn't go meet with clients. And within 4 days, it was incredibly apparent that the real estate market was not shutting down. It was not going to stop.
Right.
And that fueled a significant increase in buyer activity. Yeah,
really a 3-year super bull market, 2020, 2021, 2022. And then come January 2022, the effects of the COVID inflation came into hit, and that's where the Federal Reserve started raising the cost of borrowing. And all of a sudden you saw rates go from historic lows in the 2s to this rapid increase in all the way into the 8s, right? Yep. And so that created this seesaw economy, seesaw market. It happened so fast that a lot of agents didn't even know what was happening because it was happening so quick. Buyers and sellers had all these different expectations because they didn't know what's going on. It was really, really tough. But ultimately, 2022 was kind of the pivot year into this, kind of, I don't want to call it a down market, but it's been a much tougher market. Right?
It came back, and I think because there wasn't a gradual shift back to normalcy. Usually when we look at historical trends, it's kind of this slow decline back into normal market pace, normal market appreciation, normal market climate. And what happened was it happened in this span of 90 days. And a lot of real estate agents got caught with their pants down, so to speak, absolutely unaware, unknowing. And a lot of buyers and sellers, like you said, their expectations were somewhere that 90 days later wasn't even possible to match those expectations. And so when you basically go from 90 miles an hour, slam the brakes, and in 90 days you're crawling along at 5 miles per hour, but you're still moving, it feels like a massive recession. And that's kind of what it felt like to a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, no, that's not inaccurate at all. In our market, I know between 2022 and 2023, we saw about 40% of the agents not sell any houses that had sold the transaction the year before. So huge change, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden things got very tough.
Yep. Yeah, 2022 was a very difficult year to navigate. 2023 we kind of knew was going to be difficult. So those of us who are very active in the market and are consistently selling properties, we were watching in real time. And I remember even our team talking about it right when it happened in April 22. We talked about how this is going to change the way that we do business. This is going to change the way we have to look at our businesses and at our income and at our investments and at our savings to be able to weather this storm, so to speak, that's coming. We talked about that very actively. We knew that it was going to take 5 times the amount of effort to achieve the same kind of results. So we kind of started preaching that and started talking openly about that to our team early on.
Yeah, and it didn't feel like it was like a Great Recession 2008 moment all over again. We went through that, obviously, and that was It was a topic for another day, but that was, a huge, just scary experience to go through where everyone lost so much money. This was more like, hey, there's a big change going on. I'm not really sure what that is. You got to figure that out.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly right.
But let's kind of share our playbook. Like, what do you do when markets shift? How do you get through it? And what do agents need to know to not only survive, but to thrive as markets change? Because we know one thing for sure, markets are dynamic. They're going to change again. If you don't like the market right now, just wait a year. It's going to be totally different,
exactly.
right? So the goal today is take this playbook, be able to adopt it as the market changes again. And the first thing I want to talk about is the mindset of top producers. Top producers find a way to win in up markets, and they find a way to win in down markets.
Yes.
Let's talk more about that. Why is that the case?
That's the case because we understand that markets change, and we also understand that the outcomes that we are after have everything to do with the action that we're taking, and blaming it on the market, blaming it on the economy is not a extreme ownership perspective. Thank you. Like having extreme ownership, and that's what top producers do, right? Top producers take extreme ownership. They have ownership over their actions. They have ownership over their outcome. So they're not going to blame things that they cannot control.
Yeah.
In a market, volatility is not something that we can control. So top producers take extreme ownership, and that's why they win in any market.
Definitely. So their mindset is different, just kind of what you're getting out there. They control things that they can control. I think top producers are also watching what's happening in the market, and so they catch the shifts a lot quicker than other people. I know a lot of times, like, I'll be having conversations with agents that are saying things to me that don't apply in the current market at all.
Yeah.
They applied like 6 months ago because that was the last time they did a transaction, and that's totally okay if that's you. But when you're not like hyper involved in the market on a daily basis, you don't really see those pivots happening, and you can get kind of out of touch with it very, very quickly.
Yeah. Well, the mindset of a top producer is proactive. It's not reactive, right? And so a top producer will consistently be looking at the market trends. We will consistently be looking at hot sheets. We will consistently be looking at what are trends in different areas, neighborhoods, zip codes, cities. What is the list price to sale price? What is the average days on market trending toward? What are the months of inventory trending toward? And if you're looking at that daily, weekly, monthly, it's pretty easy to start seeing trends really quickly. Whereas somebody who's reactive isn't going to be checking in on that kind of stuff. They're not necessarily educating themselves on the current market. Like you mentioned, people who may be dabbling in real estate maybe only close a transaction every few months. And in between, they're not doing market research. They're not keeping top of mind not keeping the market climate top of mind. So they're going to miss things. They're going to think that the climate of the last transaction they had or the last time that they closed something is still, prevalent. And that's typically not the case.
Right. Yeah. So that's one of the top tips I can give people is stay very attuned to your market stats, to the data. Make sure you're looking at your hot sheet every day. Make sure you're looking at your month-end stats every single month, and that you're informing your team and your clients about what's happening. I mean, these are dynamic conversations to be having with active sellers, with active buyers, giving them updates on what's happening. It's going to result in a lot less client fallout when you have that, a lot less canceled listings, a lot less expired listings, because you're giving updates to your people in real time on what's happening. Like, hey, I'm seeing the days on market are going up drastically right now. It's not showing up in the data sheets yet because those homes aren't closed.
Yes.
But I'm seeing it happen in real time. Like real tactical information to share with your clients like that.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. So, speaking of what we can control in any market climate, in any economy, what can we control?
That's really the question. And that's what separates the top producers that are going to win in any climate and the people that really just will succumb to the market changes and they're just going to kind of collapse. People, I don't know why, but people have this psychological mindset that when things are changing, when things are getting tough, that just to do nothing is an acceptable solution, right? And to do nothing is probably the worst thing that you can do, right? So I think you need to get very clear, and sometimes it's helpful to just write this down. Make a fucking line on a piece of paper. Should I control? Should I don't control? And just get it out of your head, right? It'll just be a helpful exercise for you to flesh that out. What do I control? Well, I control my mindset, right? I control my actions. I control the way I show up to the office every single day. I control the offensive reach out I have to my clients. I control how many conversations I get to have that are based off of real estate. I get to control how well I know the market. I get to control how many homes I go tour every single day. I get to control these data sheets I'm looking at. I get to control how much video content I put out. There's all of these actions that I can control, but what can I not control? I can't control interest rates, right? I can't control if it's a buyer or seller's market. I can't control that perfect buyer or seller walks through that door to buy that house, right? Or to list with me. So
like everything you just said, like empowers me. Like all the things that you can control. Like what a great exercise that you mentioned, right? Drawing a line down the center of a piece of paper and literally saying, what things can I control? And when you actually write it out, you control exponentially more things than you don't.
Right.
And so, but what do people do? They focus on the things and blame the things they cannot control.
Well, so this year is a very, very good example of this, and we'll use the NAR settlement as just kind of a case study for this mindset for agents. So many agents, literally tens of thousands of them, if not hundreds of thousands across the country, all they were doing was scrolling social media for the last 9 months as NAR rolled out the changes where you had to sign buyer agency agreements. Oh my God, commissions are going away. They're not going to be posting the MLS anymore. Meanwhile, we're all looking around and be like, dude, we've been doing this shit for years. Like, there's been no commissions required in our MLS for 2 years or 3 years now. We've been signing buyer agency agreements, like consulting with people, identifying how we get paid, what the process looks like to buy, what we do for them for 7 fucking years. So this is really nothing new, but you have all these agents that are now just scared shitless of these changes. And again, because of fear, the fear leads to uncertainty. The uncertainty leads to inaction. The inaction leads to a collapse of your business.
Exactly.
It's like this super just lineal progression of downfall.
Exactly. Well, and again, like you control the clickbait headlines that you consume. You control the information, the education you consume. You control the mindset with which you enter these new climates, these new situations. So,
right. If you want to protect your mindset, because a lot of this is protecting the information you put in your brain, get off of all the real estate fucking mastermind groups. These aren't mastermind groups, okay? These are places where agents go vent their bullshit and frustrations. And if that's the kind of toxic negativity you want to have in your head, then you're going to have that same thing show up for you as well. Like it just becomes your reality. You're inheriting the stress and the headache and the frustration all these other people vomit in these groups all the time.
It's crazy how the algorithms in social media work, because I see probably every single anonymous post that's bitching about something, and it makes me so excited when I do, because I get to finally unfollow and unsubscribe and leave that group. It's ridiculous.
Well, I am like super protective about defending my mindset. Like I refuse to have negativity in my ecosystem in any way, shape, or form. That includes social media. So I will unfriend people like so fucking fast. If I see just even a sniff of victim or a sniff of negativity, then you're fucking gone. Like I don't want to have that around me. Like I'm very protective of my mind space. And I think it's the single most important thing that people can do is control their mindset. If you have a strong mindset, you will persevere through any fucking market.
That's exactly right. So let's talk about action, because say we've created this what I control, what I don't control list on either side of this line on this piece of paper. But now what? Right? You have the same, this relentless commitment to the actions. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we're considering what actions to focus on, we have to stay very present on the actions that we control. And again, like I control things like calls, conversations. I don't control how many houses I actually sell. Like that's kind of a misnomer. That's a lagging indicator of actions I've previously taken, right?
Exactly.
When I say lagging and leading indicators, like we should unpack that for people, because a leading indicator is the leading performance. If I do this leading task, this activity, the lagging indicator will come. And a perfect example of that is just following a real estate pipeline, right? What is the leading indicator of a home sale? Well, it starts with a phone call, right? And then after the phone call, it comes to a conversation. After the conversation, it comes to an appointment. After an appointment, it comes to a client. After a client, it comes to showing houses. Then it comes to actually pending. Then it goes to closing, right? So those are all leading indicators, a lot of which you control, some of which you don't, to actually get to the outcome.
That's exactly
the
right.
Lagging indicator.
Exactly. So a relentless commitment to the action isn't like, oh, I need to get to 24 homes sold. I need to just that focusing on the lagging indicator, the outcome. Exactly. That's the wrong place to put action and energy. The right place to put action and energy are the leading activities, the actions that you can take, that you do control, the calls, the conversations. Now, when we went from a market where every conversation you had was a buyer who was qualified, able, motivated, coachable, and willing to buy or sell, to a market where maybe 1 out of every 20 or 30 people you actually have a conversation with, and that may be generous, is able to, motivated to, coachable enough to, financially qualified to buy or sell. This changes how you have to show up. This changes your relentless commitment to those activities, because now all of a sudden what took 2 hours of your day and X amount of conversations is going to take 4 or 5 hours of your day potentially, and exponentially more conversations. But committing to the relentless action of those particular activities is what is going to drive the outcome that you're looking for.
Right.
in any market.
I have two thoughts when it comes to that. One is like some people will look at it and be like, well, I've always spent 2 hours a day prospecting. So no matter what the market climate is, I'm just going to do 2 hours. And that may or may not be enough. Maybe that's enough when the market is really positive and easy, right? Maybe it's not enough when it's actually a lot more challenging. Maybe that 2 hours needs to turn into 4 or even 6 hours where you're doubling down on how much action you're taking to actually hit your outcome and your lagging indicator, right? So the second thing that I want to focus on, the second part of that conversation, is what I call adaptability with agents. A lot of agents lack the ability to adapt and to pick up on what was working 6 months ago isn't working now. They just keep doing the same shit, right? And they're not looking at what's working, what's not working. For instance, phone calls. Like phone calls have been a turbulent way to communicate for the last 5 years. There's been lots of regulatory changes about it. Same thing with texting, right? But when we look at the calling data, we see like in our team, we get about a 9% pickup rate on the phone. So that tells me like, 9%. Okay, I got to make 100 phone calls to talk to 9 people. And that's not even 9 conversations. That's just 9 pickups, right? Exactly. And then from there, I might get 2 or 3 conversations. So how can I be adaptive? How can I think outside the box and use my mindset to reach more people in other ways, other channels like text, like email, like video? What else can I do? I got to think outside of the box. And as markets change, I must adapt to it. That lack of adaptability is the reason a lot of agents just feel like they're pounding their fucking head against the wall.
Absolutely spot on. Like absolutely spot on. The inability for people to step outside of their own needs and look at a situation objectively in any market is the reason that a lot of people really struggle when markets even change a tiny bit, right? They are unable, like you're saying, to step away from what has been and what has worked for a really long time and continue like the word insanity, right? It's crazy. They continue to do the same thing even though it has not worked for months. It is continuing to not work. And instead of changing the medium of communication or changing the way or the cadence with which they're communicating, they just keep trying to do the same exact shit all the time. And they're not awake enough or aware enough to see that it does not work the same anymore. And while our big pivot during COVID was going from calling to texting, and all of a sudden texting was huge, and it was a big deal. People were picking up
75% response rate compared to an 8% pickup rate.
Yeah, like insanity.
How would you rather spend your time? Right.
Like let's focus on texting, that activity. Yep. And there's been time that email is incredibly. You're nurturing that person via email. So there's a lot more engagement. Everybody almost opens those emails. They read them, they consume them, and it's about bringing value. And how many emails do I need to send to enable to provide value for them to finally have enough recognition of your name and your brand and your authenticity and your authority in the space to answer the phone call when you pick up the next time, right? So, or when you call the next time. So you're spot on. Like you have to think outside the box in any market. Like, is this actually working? And what else can I apply? What kind of medium of communication can I apply that is actually going to reach this person?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So you got to track what you do. Like that's the best way to know is if what you're doing is working or not, is track key data points. Like track things like calls, conversations, how many appointments you're setting, all of those like key metrics. That's why we CISO used to see all those analytics, and really pick up on the trends faster. Exactly.
So what are a couple of things, whether to be able to get through, a tough market, especially, like what are some things that, like some tactical things that we can tell people, do these things consistently regardless, but especially in order to weather a tough market?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a playbook, for that, and beyond the mindset piece and the adaptability pieces that we were just talking about. But a lot of this is going to come down to having some strong business skills, and like putting aside the realtor hat for just a minute and really stepping into the business operator role. The first thing is expense control. Like you need to have a very, very good idea of where your money is going. It's very simple to have $100,000 coming in and $100,000 going out every month. And so understanding how your money moves and what part of your money is actually moving the bottom line, like what's actually creating more business, more opportunities, more revenue, becomes very, very important. That's why, again, like tracking, like what are your lead sources that are converting, all those types of things. But expense control, without question, is one of the most important things. And it's never too late to start this, right? Like a good operator should have been doing this all along, not waiting for the bad market. But if you haven't been doing it, start doing it right now. Like get your financials up and running, start looking at P&L at least once a week. Don't wait for the end of the month once all the money has been spent, and really track where your money is going and know exactly exactly what's coming in and what's going out and where it's going.
Exactly. So, to piggyback on that, creating, a comprehensive spending plan, right? Or budget. And this is both personally and professionally. Like, do you know, like you say, are you doing a return on investment report? Are you doing an ROI report every single month on, if I spent money on this lead source, is it making me money? If I spent money on this marketing, is it making me money? Am I getting a return for that money? If you're paying extra for all these little subscriptions here and there, like, do an audit of everywhere that you're spending money, and is it actually generating business for you or not? On the personal side, a lot of people scaled their lifestyle during the COVID years, like I like to call them unicorn years. They scaled their lifestyle based on the income that they made in 1 year. This is a rookie move. This is not something that you want to do or adopt. One great year does not mean or guarantee future great years. So scaling your expenses, your overhead recurring expenses to your highest year is a bad move. You need to pull back. You need to cut things. You need to sacrifice maybe even to make sure that your recurring overhead is as low as possible. Then in good years, once you put, which we'll talk about in a second, some cash reserves aside, now we can scale up, but be very wary of adding on recurring commitments every month in these kind of markets.
Yeah, I mean, the expense control consideration goes to the personal level at home, and it goes to the business as well. You need to have those in place in both areas, for sure. Budgeting, like you said, really, really huge, like both on a personal and a business level. I think a lot of agents don't really know where their business is coming from.
Yeah.
Like they go off of feeling like, I think I closed like 3 or 4 deals this month off Zillow. And then you look at it and they didn't close any deals off of Zillow. Like you should be able to tell me like how much your cost per closing is for each one of your lead sources, or you should immediately stop spending money on that lead source. This is how we make better data-backed decisions.
Yep.
Like that phrase I use that drives everyone nuts. But like Zillow, we just had a conversation the other day. We were down to like $2,000 cost per closing on Zillow earlier this year. And just the other day, what was it, like $8,000, right? So we're paying attention to these sensors all over our business telling us, hey, you have a problem here. You need to shut this down. So Zillow's getting turned off, right?
Exactly.
It's not working for us right now. It's not producing that ROI. And so we've got that expense control in place. We've got that budget in place. And then we've got these sensors to know what's going on to actually make decisions.
Exactly right. So let's talk about cash reserves. I mean, this was something that you and I had to learn the hard way in previous businesses, because our inclination as business owners was to take all of our profit, all of our money, and put it back into the business to keep growing it. And that ended up biting us in the ass, long story short. So now we know, okay, we're going to keep a minimum level of capital, of liquid cash in the bank for both ourselves personally and our business. And that is incredibly intentional. Like knowing your monthly overhead, like how much does it cost to run my business every single month with all of the recurring overhead expenses, as well as anything else that I would want or like to do within reason. What is that going to cost me? And then at least 3 to 6 months, having that amount of cash on hand at all times and not dipping below that, not paying yourself any of that out of that, cash reserves, because that's what's going to help you weather a tough market.
Yeah, I think 3 months is really good for business. I used to be a big fan of the 6 months, and having been through like lots of markets now, we've never come even close to that. Like we adjusted ours down to 3 months. I think it was like a year and a half ago, and it's had really no negative impact. The concern I get is if you hold too much cash and it's not actually making money for you, it's actually kind of losing you money. So like you could do like money market accounts, like what we've done and things like that, just so you're making some kind of return on that big chunk of cash that's sitting there. But I think 3 months of business expenses make sense. It's really, really rare that you're going to just have a month where you don't sell any fucking houses. Let's be honest. Like there's going to be some revenue coming in. So the people that say like, hey, I need 6 months of covering every single piece of overhead. Like when's the last time you didn't sell 6 or any homes in 6 months on your team, right?
Sure.
Like that's just, it's kind of like a nuclear option if you think about it from that perspective. So I think 3 months is good in the business. I love 6 months on the personal, and I love 6 months on the personal because that way you're not making emotional, erratic financial decisions with where your money's invested. Like you're not pulling money out of stocks, for example, or selling real estate assets when the market is down. You're able to sell them when the timing is best for you.
Yeah, so that segues perfectly into the next point, which is not making emotional decisions.
Yeah.
And having financial stability in that you've put away these cash reserves, you have this financial cushion to be able to rest on, not so that you can sit back on your laurels and stop doing business, but so that you can weather a storm if the storm comes and when the storm comes. But now that allows you, like you're saying, a lot of people will run themselves so thin that now they're negotiating and they are converting from a position of weakness and doing what we call like like commission breath, right? Like they're so desperate for that next money that they're acting out of desperation. They work with people they wouldn't typically work with, or they're making an emotional decision that they wouldn't typically make. Save yourself from doing that. Buy those cash reserves and don't make emotional decisions in tough markets. What else?
I've seen people lay off like staff really, really fast. And like oftentimes the staff have like years of tenure with their team or their company, and they bring a lot of value to the organization, and people just cut them loose really quick just because they're making a super emotional reactive decision. So, I think we all fall victim to this in some way, shape, or form. Sure. Like if you have a really shitty month, and let's say you lose like $50,000 one month, you get pretty nervous really fast. I know I still do, right?
Yeah,
like we'll have good months and bad months, and some of those bad months, I'm just like, oh fuck, like I gotta burn it all down, or like cut all these expenses, and you gotta like just calm down a little bit, take a deep breath, give yourself like 24 hours before you start making any decisions, and then like really start looking. Dive into the data, dive into your P&L, dive into your lead source ROI report. And it's fine to go ahead and start adjusting things, but don't just start hatcheting it,
Yes. So I love this saying that I heard a couple months ago, and that is, do not fire anyone and do not quit until tomorrow. Because after that 24-hour period, when that emotion goes down and you're able to think logically again, you'll probably make a different decision.
Right. And cutting those staff, that could literally be the foundation that keeps you from being able to lunge forward when you do have those really good months as
exactly
well.
Right. Yeah.
I think lead sources are honestly the thing to cut the fastest. Like if a lead source is not performing and you're bleeding cash, cut it there.
Yeah.
Look at the general business expenses as well, and see where you're maybe like hemorrhaging money there. Like you said, like a lot of like software as a solution, like reoccurring monthly expenses for technology and things like that in real estate add up to tens of thousands of dollars. People want to sell you so much shit
all the time.
And some of it is really cool shit.
Yep.
But some of it is shit you really don't fucking need. And you have to be able to decide like, what are you willing to invest in that brings you enough efficiency or productivity or whatever else, and what can you do without?
Exactly.
Like, do I really need this or do I not really need this?
Exactly. Yeah. Do you have any other points for weathering a tough market?
I would just say the mindset thing. Like I would just want to come back to that again. Like that's really the one I want to hammer home, because so many people collapse mentally before they've even started the fight. You know what I mean? Like just the thought of what could be overwhelms them into this paralyzed state where they don't even roll up their sleeves and get to work. They're just done. Like I've seen people retire over the last couple of years or get out of real estate where they're just like, the thought of these NAR changes were overwhelming to me and I quit. And that's a bullshit way to be, right? Like if your skin is that thin, you don't belong in sales for damn sure. And you don't belong in real estate either, right? We all have some self-doubt fears, but you got to like put those aside and actually lean in, roll your sleeves up, and double down on the actions.
Well, that is an emotional decision, right? Fear is an emotion. And making emotional decisions, quitting when you think that you can't do something, like you're not even giving yourself a chance to like address that potential fear or change that story into something else, into potential success. So
right.
I would agree.
I did, like, I'll just be super transparent. During the COVID market, I don't know if you remember this or not, but we did have a nuclear plan. Like I had a plan on the shelf ready to pull off if the market was just going to like completely fall off a cliff. Like the kind of cuts that we'd have to make, like we literally cut almost all of our spending. I think we kept our coach, our CRM, and our staff, and that was it. Like lead gen went to nothing, like lead generation and lead conversion. All like the Zillows and Realtor.coms were giving things for free because everyone was canceling it and stuff like that. So having that nuclear option is good if something happens like 2008 all over again. But it's not the playbook you want to pull out first,
Exactly. Yeah. Great point. Love it.
Awesome. So that's kind of the playbook for weathering a tough market. If you found value in this, I'd really love for you to, and ask you to leave us a review, share this with somebody, or if you're watching on YouTube, to subscribe to our channel as well, so you can get these updates, these new videos as we push them out. We do one each and every week. If you want to get in touch with us as well, you can find me on at the real Mike Novak on Instagram, or you can find us online at meetthenovaks.com.
Yep. And I am at Rachel Novak with the extra A on Instagram.
See you next week.